Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie.
To the long, endless night, and I live in the absence of light, and my shadow has life of its own, watching you while you sleep all alone. I'm condemned to the long, endless night, and I live in the absence of light.
Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie.
Welcome to another episode of Paranormal After Dark with me, your host, the Roadie. Tonight, UFOs. And if you want to talk on the show, have a chat, come on, talk anything paranormal, drop me a line, theroadie@outlook.co.nz, or jump on to the Rocket FM Facebook page and send me a message.
Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie.
Mithra, one of the new wave British heavy metal bands out of South Shields in England, formed in 76. Alex Perry and the lads there. And a song called UFO, rather appropriately, here on Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie. I am talking to New Zealand UFO investigator Peter Hassall. Do you think there's a pattern to him, like I said earlier, about the time? It's time on Earth, like the Industrial Revolution, and then when we start to go to the moon. Is there patterns of sightings around those times? Like if someone was watching us, if we just put the thing there that yes, we are being watched or visited, are they coming?
You could argue
critical times in history.
you could argue that UFOs really kicked off the modern era in 1947, and some people have said, well, maybe that's because we exploded atomic bombs.
Yeah.
And suddenly they thought, better keep an eye on these people, sort of thing. And there have been quite a few sightings of UFOs near military bases and nuclear power plants and things, which is a bit worrying. I know there are lots of I'll say conspiracy theories about crashed UFOs being held by the United States government, and every 5 to 10 years you hear about there's going to be a big revelation by world governments and things, and I can tell you right now it's not going to happen.
Look,
because no government knows any more about UFOs than you or I.
No, if there was a revelation going to come, in my view, right, it would be the extraterrestrials visiting Earth saying, right, we're here, right? They're not going to rely, and you're right about the American thing. Like, why is it only America? If I'm an extraterrestrial being, why am I going to only deal with America and keep it quiet with America, Like, I think if there is ever going to be a revealing, they will one day land on the White House lawn or the Kremlin lawn or whatever and say, we're here, right? We're here.
Well,
right? That's it.
Exactly. And the only thing governments are keeping secret, including the American one, is better quality footage, videos of UFOs, because they don't like to admit that they don't know what's going on in their own skies.
That's right.
If you think about it, it's a security issue.
Of course.
There's some sort of, they definitely seem to be some sort of advanced aircraft.
That's right.
And if you're not from outer space or time in the future or whatever, the worry would be that they're super advanced things belonging to a hostile nation.
That's right.
You look at things like these hypersonic missiles that are being developed now. So you could argue that there's some sort of thing like that, which is a security risk. Although personally, I don't believe any nation on Earth is capable of building anything which can do what UFOs have been reported and measured to have done with instrumentation.
And I mean, I listened to a show recently. It was a show from a few years ago, an Art Bell show, where there was a guy on there theorising, as you say, every few years the theories came up. And I thought about this one and thought, it would be a possibility of a government holding it back for this reason and this reason only, is that they were talking about how, they were reverse engineering things, but this guy was talking about how the military industrial complex was involved. Their industries were the ones reverse engineering things, so that was why they were keeping it secret, because they wanted to make money and they wanted to, not let the other people know. And then they brought the religion thing into it, where the major religions of the world are saying you can't reveal this because we've got a lot to lose and stuff. I mean, I mean, to me, if the aliens are going to reveal themselves, they're just going to reveal themselves. They're going to say that's it. They're not going to go along with a government or a religion saying, okay, we won't do anything.
If we're not going to do what our pet hamster tells us to do.
No, that's right. Exactly.
And we'll be at that level compared to whatever it is that's causing UFOs.
Exactly.
And there are all sorts of interesting tie-ins with other paranormal and even cryptozoological stuff, which is where it gets really weird.
Yeah.
I am aware of, and these were uncovered by an Australian, mainly cryptozoology researcher called Tony Healy, and he's written a couple of books about the Yowie and mystery animals in Australia, or co-written them with a chap called Paul Cropper. May also wrote a book about Australian poltergeist cases, and even experienced one while it was happening. Anyway, Tony's been here, and he's been around New Zealand a couple of times, mainly checking out sightings of mystery big cats and so on. But also we've had some sightings in New Zealand of mystery big hairy hominids, like Bigfoot type creatures.
Yep.
And Tony's actually uncovered 2 reports of those seen at the same time and place as balls of light.
Well, that's interesting
around.
because that is a theory that's out there, particularly with Bigfoot, because the argument, of course, has been, well, if Bigfoot exists, we've never found any bodies or skeletons or anything, and there is that tie-in that perhaps they're interdimensional travellers or they're extraterrestrials, and that has been seen in the States where there's been balls of lights at the same time. It is really fascinating. There's a lot in the world that we don't know about.
A lot of stuff can interconnect. And that's the high strangeness cases. And of course, if Bigfoot was a real living creature, how could it be in New Zealand, for instance?
That's right. Yeah.
So
exactly.
that's a whole different kettle of fish to say Moa's still existing somewhere.
Of course.
Also, one other thing too is I think what people see, it's what labels they put on what they see.
Mm-hmm.
If someone sees a ball of light hovering near us, say in a cemetery, they're going to think it's a ghost.
Of course.
They see the same ball of light moving around somewhere else, they're going to think it's a UFO.
Yeah, fair enough.
But they're seeing exactly the same thing.
Although if I saw a ball of light in a cemetery, I wouldn't think that, because I've always thought if there's a spirit, it's well gone before you get put in the cemetery. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, most people, there's a long tradition. I'm not aware of any New Zealand ones, but there is a long tradition, especially in America, of balls of light seen on railway lines.
Oh, okay.
And it's usually a story about a guy who was killed, he's swinging his lantern sort of thing. It's the idea that people have about it.
Interesting.
And, people can see a glowing entity, right?
Yeah.
And it can be interpreted as either a ghost or a religious type thing or an alien.
Yeah.
He's got his UFO park somewhere.
Yeah.
It all depends upon the person's beliefs and
That's right. It's fascinating.
time for,
Another discussion for another time. I mean, a couple of episodes of Star Trek always intrigued me, where, especially Deep Space Nine, where there was a couple of episodes where universes clashed. And so what they were seeing was, they thought they were seeing ghosts, but they were actually 2 universes in the same place at the same time.
Right, yeah.
And I thought, that started getting me thinking, going, that's interesting. Anyway, we're deviating away from what I wanted to talk about.
Well, there was one episode of Star Trek, the original series in the 60s, where the Enterprise time travelled back to modern-day Earth and was reported as a UFO.
That's right. And if you have a look at that Tic-Tac one they keep showing, right?
Yeah.
You have a close look at that. You have a real close look at it, because I did the other day. It vaguely looks like the USS Enterprise. You have a look. Seriously, you can see the saucer, and when it sort of moves, you can see the nacelles a little bit. And I'm thinking, no.
I have to watch that.
Just have a look. You do get the impression that it could be the Enterprise. Whether, again, as you just said, that's my mind wanting to see that. But I was watching it and I go, bloody hell, that looks like the Enterprise. Because Star Trek has predicted a lot of stuff that is
true.
And I'm thinking, what if? Anyway.
Can I just say one thing which has always intrigued me after all this research and interviewing witnesses and so on? One thing which is interesting is, and this happens not just with UFOs, but if people have a close encounter with, a mystery animal or ghost or whatever, for witnesses, it can have a massive effect on their lives. It can, we're talking about close-up sightings of something. I mean, most of these misinterpretations of people just see a light in the sky. Yeah. Right? And it's a satellite or a planet or bright star or whatever. But when you're talking about close-up dramatic sightings of something, there's much less likelihood of someone misinterpreting anything, obviously.
Yeah.
Be a big cat or Bigfoot or UFO, what have you. And those things tend to literally be life-changing for people. Like they shatter their worldview. Have you ever heard of the Eileen Moreland sighting?
I've heard the name. Remind me of it. Let's have a chat about it.
Okay, so that was in 1959 in Blenheim.
Yep.
And she went out early one morning to milk for cows. They just had a small herd and they put the milk out by the letterbox for a guy that collected it. So just a little boutique dairy herd, not a big proper farm thing. Her husband worked as a security guard at a nearby Air Force base. And suddenly, she turned on the lights of the milking shed and the radio. And just after she went down to where the cows were, this disc-shaped object came down. She saw two men sitting inside it in silver-type suits and everything. It hovered just above the ground and then shot off with a big roar of jets. And, she was quite shocked, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
And she pulled herself together and just quickly finished milking these few dozen or so cows because, they had to get that out, and called her husband. And her husband convinced her to report it to the Air Force. And she had a very bad experience with the Air Force because they really grilled her and really interrogated her. And but the interesting thing is I didn't meet her in person, but many years later I spoke to her on the phone. I tracked her down and talked to her over the phone. But a couple of very interesting things about her sighting. The radio was playing what was sort of a big song at the time, but it wasn't really a song. When I tracked it down, it was more, how can I put it? It's just a piano instrumental.
Right, yeah.
By a guy called Russ Conway.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually find it on YouTube. I found it. A sound, video of it with it being played.
Yeah.
And it was called Roulette. And it's just like this light-hearted party type tune, just piano instrumental.
Right.
And that was playing on the radio when this happened, and the radio sort of faded out. And she said that for years and years afterwards, whenever she and her husband went to any social gathering, if that was put on, it was a big hit at the time for quite a while, she had to leave the room because it brought the whole experience flooding back and upset her. Yeah. So it's kind of like a PTSD thing,
Yeah. And
she had a very frightening, shocking experience, and that if she heard that piano piece again, it brought it all back to her.
She definitely saw something. There's no doubt about that, because, like you say, most of these cases, people are seeing something. It's what it actually is the fascinating part about it, I guess.
Exactly, and she also had, a little bit like Close Encounters type stuff. She got some sort of spots appeared on her face and her hands after the sighting, which eventually came off. And there was a story going around for many years that her fingers swelled up so much that she had to have a wedding ring cut off.
Oh, wow.
But this is the interesting thing. When I spoke to her, she said, no, that's not true. That's exaggerated.
Okay.
Which impressed me because she wasn't trying to exaggerate the story.
Yeah, right, which means...
Other people had exaggerated the story. It's a bit like this whole internet stuff we talked about before. Yeah. But she said, no, that's not correct. She could easily have said, yes, that happened.
Yeah, of course.
More dramatic.
Yeah.
So both of those things, quite impressed me when I spoke to her.
Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie. More with Peter Hassall, New Zealand UFO Investigator, shortly after this break. Here's UFO and Space Child from the Phenomenon album.
Going through pages
Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie on Rocket FM.
That's me. I'm here. Welcome back. I'm talking with New Zealand UFO investigator Peter Hassall. What other New Zealand cases, interesting ones that people might not know about, have you got there that you could tell us about? Because I've no doubt there was a lot more happened in this country that just wasn't reported.
Well, exactly. And just before I can tell you a couple of other interesting ones, but what you just said about that aren't reported, that's exactly the thing.
Yeah.
Who do people report UFOs to? Or anything else for that matter. If people to see a strange light in the sky, many people that to see that, they don't bother reporting it to anyone because they don't think it's important enough. But then on the other end of the spectrum, if someone has a close-up dramatic sighting like Mrs. Moreland did, who are you going to report it to?
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's going to think you're crazy.
Yeah, it's
right?
true. Yeah,
or give you a tough time about it.
Yeah.
Like they had people turned up on their farm and left gates open and the cows got out and people just trespassed all over the place and harassed them.
Yeah.
For a long time afterwards. And she said that, between that and what she went through with the Air Force interrogation, she said if she saw anything again, she'd never ever report it.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's...
so this is the thing, though. They've done Gallup polls in America, which is a big polling organisation, and they've found that literally only about 1 in 40 or so people that say they've seen a UFO have actually reported it to anyone at all. Sometimes people report it to the Air Force or the police or, the local astronomical group or whatever, observatory, but often people don't know who to report it to.
Right.
Or they're afraid to report it for fear of ridicule and so on.
Yeah, right. Of course, the Air Force are useless to report it to anyway.
Well, I mean, pretty much anyone's useless to report it to in New Zealand. Yeah. Or except for me. But,
so,
the authorities, they're not interested. They don't care.
Do we have any UFO organisations like MUFON in New Zealand, or is it just individuals?
Well, we did have MUFON. There are a few small organisations around still. MUFON used to have a representative, a chap called Murray Bott, who was a good friend of mine for many years. He unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago while we're going through all the COVID lockdowns and things. And I'm very fortunate in that I have inherited his collection of material to add to my own. And that is a huge collection going back to the 1950s of original reports and photos and negatives and sketches and everything, because he inherited most of the stuff from 2 organisations that used to exist from the 50s through to the 70s.
Right.
And then he is continuing himself as a MUFON representative at the time. There's been a lot of duplicate material, and quite a bit of that I've passed on to Mark Wallbank. I don't know if you know him.
I know Mark very well.
Yep, he's a ghost researcher in Auckland, but of course he also has an interest in UFOs as well.
Been a guest on the show a couple of times, so
he knew Murray quite well, and he did a nice little tribute video on YouTube about him after he died. So between us, Mark and I, we're sort of preserving all the material, and we've got long-term plans to digitise it and so on.
Excellent.
I think the main thing is a lot of groups have fallen by the wayside now because there are, Facebook groups and things online where people can report a sighting.
Right.
And so on. So, if people are going to report it to anyone, I think they tend to just mention it in one of the groups on Facebook or some of the international UFO organisations to their web pages.
Right, okay.
Sort of thing.
Well, I've got one to talk to you about, which I'll talk to you about later on, but are there any other interesting New Zealand cases from the past that you can have a quick chat about? And then I'll tell you about the one that I've seen regularly here and see what you think about it.
Okay, I might have an explanation.
Yeah.
Or possible one.
Yeah.
Look, there are many, but one interesting one. In 1998, I wrote a book called The NZ Files about UFOs in New Zealand, and I'm working on doing a big, expanded and updated edition of that. But there's a 1992 sighting from a chap near the Kaikoura Peninsula, and they saw a Cessna plane flying along, and sort of fairly closely following was a small black triangular object, completely black.
Right. Yeah.
About 3 meters long, 2 meters wide. So black triangles are one of the sort of UFO types, if you like, though they usually tend to be much bigger than that. And it was following the aircraft, but then it veered off and flew away from it. So it doesn't appear to have been anything being, a drone or anything being towed by the aircraft. This is pre the days before all these standalone drones that are flying around now. So that was quite an interesting sighting. When there's a bit of publicity about me doing the book, this witness got in touch with me. But yeah, UFOs are extremely varied in the descriptions and so on. I've even seen people joking about their, time travelers or aliens, and they're all like individual customized cars are for us here, kids hot rodding around.
Yeah. So anything else that sort of like is there any that have like really stood out in the files you've got there that can't be explained?
Well, I think in general, some of the ones I've spoken about, like Eileen Moreland sighting, the Black Triangle one, is quite intriguing. It's I don't know. It's I always say it's the world's biggest, most complex, and longest running mystery.
So what do you think about the Kaikoura lights? I mean, people put it down to Venus and all that sort of stuff. I mean, do you buy that explanation, or do you think that was something else?
I think it was something else. Main reasons are that the pilots on the two different aircraft flew those routes regularly. Yeah. So they were familiar with what was around. And why, if they mistook mundane objects for UFOs, why had they never done it any time beforehand or since? Any pilots flying back those ways. Just on those two particular occasions, a short time apart. And also, I think with the skeptics, it was a case of throw enough mud and hope some will stick. Because they literally, there would have been at least 15 explanations given for what they saw. And they did see more than one light, various ones. Trains, lights of cities and towns, lighthouses, fishing boats at sea, Venus,
but the Venus
stars,
one got me
and all the rest of it.
The Venus one got me because the odd photo I've seen of it, what they saw was quite big, and I'm thinking Venus has never been that big in our sky ever. Yeah, don't come at me with that crap.
Well, perhaps a few of the lights may have been misinterpretations, as they got excited by what they initially saw. But the vast bulk of the explanations don't stack up at all for that. Now, having said that, Kaikoura, the sightings themselves are basically just a light in the sky. Okay?
Yeah, that's right.
What makes the cases particularly interesting is that they were caught on radar at the same time, and also on one occasion, of course, filmed.
Well, that's it.
And the second time they were seen was when a camera crew were on board the aircraft just to shoot a piece of what it was like on the plane.
That's right.
To report on the first lot of sightings, and happened again, and they filmed it.
And that's what gets me is, how do you say it's Venus and lights from fishing boats when radar picks it up? Because radar has to have a solid object to bounce off. It can't pick up a light beam.
I mean, radar, you can get false returns, things called angels, but
for sure.
I've spoken to John Cordy, who was the one of the air traffic controllers in Wellington.
Yeah.
And he was adamant that they weren't like the usual sort of false
No,
stuff
you
which
can
they
tell
were
because I worked
familiar with.
I worked in the marine industry for a lot of years in shore stations and ports. You know, we had marine radar, and you know we would get false readings from waves and stuff. Once you're trained, you could tell what the usual anomalies are that you got. You know.
Yeah, and if you couldn't, you'd be in trouble, wouldn't you?
That's right, exactly.
Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie.
Christchurch band Sins of Eve and Departed here on Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie. Back now to my chat with Peter Hassall, New Zealand UFO investigator. What I've been seeing here recently in the last few years, and I got this verified. I got my teenage daughter to come and have a look, and my wife, who was a skeptic, came out and had a look one night. And this has happened several times. Haven't looked this year because it's been cloudy most nights, but I live in a bay just on the road to Port Chalmers, and if you look out to the, I guess it'd be northeast, there's a bay called Long Beach, or it's the sea. It's a little bit further over out to sea possibly. There's a point in the sky that we were watching one night, just watching. I was saying to my daughter, "Oh, that looks like a satellite," because you can tell it's holding its line. You know, it's holding its line. It's going across the horizon. And it's down. And we were watching these ones. We could track them, and I think she brought up her her little satellite tracker app, and she found, oh yes, that was this, and here's the International Space Station. We saw a couple of lights that were way out. You know, they obviously weren't planes; they were way out. That were moving, not in straight lines, but quite erratically. You know, a couple of them turned right angles and kept moving. But what got me, this is what's blown me away, is they all went to this one particular point in the sky and then disappeared. And this happened on several nights where you'd see these lights that were moving erratically would get to a particular point in the sky and then just gone. And there was not, you know, I said to my daughter, because she's got better eyesight, is there a cloud up there? You know, no, couldn't see a cloud, anything. It was really weird. It's happened 3 or 4 times last year. We had a good look at it, and it was the same point in the sky every night. These lights would go to and then disappear, almost like it was a portal of some sort, or not saying that that's what it was, but it was. That's what we've been seeing.
Oh, well, that sounds fairly interesting.
And I even checked, with landmarks in my backyard, is that the same point? And I got my daughter to check, is it? And we all looked, it was the same point in the sky, and the objects that went there, you can tell a satellite because it holds a line. These things weren't holding lines. They were coming from different directions, and some of them would curve, some of them would turn. And my first thought was, they're probably planes, but they looked. If you looked at the satellite light, they were the same intensity as that, and so they appeared to be at least that far out. And I thought, this is weird. But no one else has ever reported seeing this, so I don't know if it was just a fluke that I happened to be looking at this particular point at the time or not. You know, but it's certainly intriguing. So I don't know if you've got an explanation for that or not.
Well, I'd have to get more details and over times and dates and directions and things. It certainly doesn't sound like, it wouldn't be satellites. I mean, I guess one possible thing could be drones if someone's flying something out there.
I thought that, but they're very high up. And the only other one I've ever seen, there's 2 others that I thought I saw. We're driving to Christchurch, because we're from Christchurch regularly, and we were just south of Timaru. This is the middle of the day, and one of my daughters and I, a different daughter, actually out the corner of our eye saw something silver go across the sky and down and behind a hill and then come back up again, and it was gone. So we're very quick, don't know what that was because we were moving. But as a teenager, I'm talking about the right angle things. I remember where I lived in Christchurch was at Heskett Valley, and so because it was out of the city, the sky was always quite clear. And I used to lay on the back lawn and listen to shortwave radio a lot, nice warm nights, and I'd look at the stars. And several times there, I saw things that would go along and then just go in right angles. Bloody weird. What are these things doing going in right angles, And again, you could see, that was in the days of Skylab. You could see Skylab. You knew Skylab was going across. You knew Mir, you could see the regular ones that were in their tracks. But there was several times I've seen these right angle things. And I haven't seen that again until I saw these ones a couple of years ago, or last year, that would do right angles or curves and then go to this point and disappear. So, I don't know what they are. Almost like it's a wormhole where they come and go from, but then I would have thought, am I seeing it accurately? Because I haven't said anything to anybody outside the family. This is the first time anyone, I may have told Mark maybe, it's the first time anyone will have heard it on here, because I wanted to see if anybody else had seen it. I've not heard anybody else say, hey, we've been seeing these things disappearing in that particular point of the sky. Doesn't mean that other people haven't seen it. I just haven't seen it.
Well, there you go too. That's up until now. You're one of that large group of people that have seen something. But you've not reported it. Well, one, I thought, who the hell do I report it to? Because you talk about MUFON. I remember going and looking for a MUFON New Zealand website, and I couldn't find one. You see, there was no point reporting it to the States because they're not going to do anything about it. Well, actually they can, because they've got investigators all around the world.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
So, they will pass it on to whoever was local, whether it's inside the States or in another country. Oh. Unfortunately, since Murray died, there isn't a MUFON rep in New Zealand physically. Yeah. Their Australian rep covers New Zealand as well now, so that's not so good. No. Unfortunately.
You don't have any association with MUFON?
No, I've never been a member. I've got every single issue of their magazine.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Between myself and Murray, which went for many, many years. Yeah. but no, I've not been a member of it or a representative for it. I've always just been a independent researcher.
What about this UFocus New Zealand? There's a website that I found about that. Who are they?
Yep, so that's Sue Hanson. I know her. Yep, so she's doing her best to collect info.
Yeah.
I mean, as is sometimes the case, real life, busy things sometimes make it difficult to spend as much time as you'd like researching. But I'd certainly suggest if anyone's listening who did want to report something, perhaps report it to both Sue and myself.
Well, anyway, good to have a chat. And if anything interesting comes to mind or comes out of the archives you've got there, I'd love to have a chat with you again so we can sort of keep the word going out there, as it were.
Yep, sure, I'd be happy to do that.
Big thanks for Peter for joining me this week. Of course, join in next time for another episode here of Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie. If you want to get in touch and be on the show and we'll chat anything paranormal, whatever. There's so much in the paranormal area we can talk about. Just drop me a line on Messenger, you know who I am, or the roadie@outlook.co.nz, email me. Till next time, this is the Roadie signing off. I'll leave you one now with my cousin Sean's band out of San Francisco in the USA. The band is called Nightmares and Daydreams. Here's Shadows in the Dark.
Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie on Rocket FM.